The moon is about to fire off yet another signal, and it is going to play into the higher term time frame picture that we have been looking at on this channel for Bitcoin, also playing hand in hand with several of the setups that we looked at from yesterday's video and several videos prior over the past week now. And other than that, I'm going to welcome you back to the Krown Crypto channel. It's a nice little Thursday morning, and I do want to once again do the old meta signal shill over here because one, I'm an investor in the project, and two, they're offering a 14-day free trial, and they had several signals in the past 24 to 48 hours playing out with Bcash. It's off to a good start. Uniswap, maybe a little bit more well-known. Symbol LIT, never heard of in my life. And KNC, Kyber Network Crystals. Oh, this one's the abundant one. That's where you get the abundance from. And this one actually hit in target 3, which is, not bad in this case. Of course, they do also cover some more, normal, in my opinion, assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the other big ones. But if you are interested in checking this out, you can see for it yourself in the link in the description below, and you get 14 days free. So if you like it, you can stay on. If you don't like it, you just say dump it and you get out. So fair enough. Anyways, moving on now, I want to get into the actual setups of the day. So first things first, I want to follow up on the moon setup that we had fired off on the 23rd of May. That was essentially longing on the full moon and selling on the new moon. So just the most basic concept of this. And again, I want to reiterate my own stance on this. Sounds fucking crazy to me. Sounds like a bunch of hocus pocus abundance bullshit. But at the end of the day, statistics are statistics. And with over the full history of Bitcoin testing these particular days, almost 61% of these did have a positive closure from the open date to the closing date. And we've actually seen yet another positive one as well. This one opening up again on the 23rd when price was trading at just below 68,000 bucks. And yesterday night it did close and got a little bit above a 5% or almost 6% move right there. So definitely below what we were looking for on the average in terms of returns. But again, we do expect variance within there. And Bitcoin was in more or less consolidationary-ish period. So I believe the average for those moves was somewhere around 14 to 15%. But ultimately a win is a win. And it is quite a humbling experience. I mean, I actually even put on one of my very small accounts just to see for myself, just because I have to experience it for myself. I actually put the skeleton key on this strategy, so it literally just trades this automatically for me, and I'm just gonna let it go for a year and see what the hell happens, because so far so good. Anyways, with that, of course, we do have a setup on the other side. Just like the full moon is typically, more likely to produce upside price action within the next couple of weeks. Again, these statistics over here relevant towards that particular conversation. We do have a setup on the other side where the new moon signals a likely downside period, or typically a downside period, which have actually gone ahead and made a setup on the skeleton key as well, or the Krown Quant Automation Services, which you can find a link to in the description below. Chilling hard today, baby. That's it. But looking at this, we can see that just blindly using this for shorts rather than longs, it is technically profitable, over the full history of Bitcoin, but it does have a lower hit rate compared to the upside signals. This one having a hit rate of just over 38.5%. And if we were to get a little bit more granular with the data, which we will later, we'll just test the ones that are on, occurring on today, Thursday. But for right now, I do want to reference the performance summary before we do that. And we can see that the performance summary does show that the average winning trade for this setup has been just under 11%. Okay, interesting, because again, we can start to play around with these numbers. I mean, a 38% probability for that to happen does imply that there's a almost 62% probability on this side for the average losing trade to happen, which did have a negative return, in this case, upside price action of almost a little over 21.5%. Which is a rather large move, by the way. So, these statistics obviously are very, very useful, not just in the vein that like it actually works out in that fashion, but also in the opposite as well. So there's a 38.5% probability that we do see about a 10% move to the upside. Let me just double check. Yeah, about a 10% move. All right, so to the downside. What would that look like from current price action over the next couple of weeks, basically? That would put Bitcoin back down around 64-ish thousand. Okay, fair enough. But what about on the other side, a 20% move from this, particular open over the next couple of weeks? Where that put Bitcoin? That would put Bitcoin at around 85, 86,000 bucks. sounds very familiar to one of yesterday's targets, by the way. What I want to do now is actually want to go into the data here, and I want to make this study using these tools to just look at Thursday. So I'm going to make it so it literally just looks at Thursday, no other day, because that is, well, when this particular signal is happening. It's not going to show the current one because it needs to wait for tonight's closure, to be fair. But actually, for example, the last signal that we did have on this particular one on Thursday was actually the January top before a pretty nasty correction. Before that, we haven't seen a signal like this since, yeah, April of 2023, and before that it was, you know, way back on over here in July. Again, when we get more granular with this, you know, is it more specific or not? I'm not sure. Well, I guess it's actually pretty much in alignment with these statistics already, because even just looking at Thursdays, it's a 40% probability of a winning trade. In this case, that would be a downside trade, and you know that is pretty similar to a 38.5% win rate that we just looked at for the whole series. But looking at the average winning trade and the average losing trade right here, 7% on the winning side versus almost 16% on the losing side, which is rather interesting. So let's go back into it and let's play around with those numbers. So 7% to the downside, you know, again, that's probably gonna be like, I don't know, $66,000. Okay, interesting. And then what about what was it again to the upside? 15. Am I losing my short-term memories? My memories? 15%. You know, that put Bitcoin in the low 80s. So again, we do now have probabilities for these things. I do believe that this does play hand in hand with the setup that we looked at. One of them would be, where the fuck did I put it? It's over here. Actually, I'm looking at symbol IBIT there. But this would be the 5-day volatility versus stochastic momentum. And then, of course, we do have one of the other ones, which I actually don't have up on the board right now, but I'll put together a video a little bit later this week that puts all of them, you know, side by side so you can see. But yeah, you know, this would still be favoring the upside as well. And, you know, from the base, 40% move would put Bitcoin where? That would put Bitcoin 86,500 bucks, somewhere around there. You know, I do think that is rather interesting that we see these things starting to, once again, you know, coalesce with each other. And these are completely different methods, completely different metrics. I mean, this one's looking at the fucking moons, and the other one's looking at volatility and momentum. And the other setup that we have, the one that I'm not showing today, is actually another volatility setup. But, well, it doesn't include momentum, so there is that. Anyways, or it is actually the volatility of momentum, so technically speaking, it does. Anyways, multiple different things coming at multiple different angles, suggesting around the same sort of targets. And technically speaking, based off the moon setup, there is a higher probability of an upside move from here. I mean, 40% versus, you know, also 38.5%, like that is going to favor upside. Let me just go to the full view here as well. So, you know, with the advent of that, make your own conclusions. Some conjecture from me would be, well, you already know where I'm going with this. I do think that there is a higher probability of an upside move in the month of June, maybe into July, and into the 80s. Would be where that points. Moving on from there, let's go into the daily statistics. We do see that Thursday has been closer to a coin flip than not. About 54.5% of Thursdays starting from the beginning of this year, 2024, have closed positively. So that means 45.5% on the other side have closed negatively. And the average return for the positive side has been almost 2%. And the average return for the negative side has been losing an average of 1 3/4. So coming up with the range for today, 2% to the upside puts Bitcoin basically at all-time highs. About 72,600-ish. To the downside, 175 shaved off current price action puts Bitcoin basically back down around 70,000 bucks. So long day left to trade. Problem is that if you are looking for, you know, a rejection, this would kind of be the area to do it at, right? but fair enough. We can move on from there into the daily HPDR. We do see that Bitcoin's, you know, kind of grazing upon the top side of the current range. Not really making much from this right now. It's kind of telling us what we already know, that Bitcoin's in a consolidationary-ish period, breakout above 72,100 on a closing basis, and of course breakdown basically below last week's low with the balancing point somewhere around 69 and change. So not really actually seeing too much from this. Of course, we do have the weekly closure coming up for CME tomorrow. That's going to be a big one. As long as Bitcoin continues to remain above the median right here, I would still have to favor the upside of this, at least the 38.2 level, maybe even the 50% level. And the 50% level is actually starting to get into the 80,000s as well. So assuming that Bitcoin closes, here or higher tomorrow, very likely sets it up for another try to the upside next week. Basically, if you're bullish, you want to see Bitcoin just not break down today nor tomorrow. I'm not necessarily convinced that Bitcoin's going to have a breakout today, but just not breaking down would be good enough. In fact, if you're looking at it, Thursday is the lowest volatile day for weekdays. The high, the difference between the high-low range here is 4.19%, whereas all the other weekdays are in the fives. Actually, the weekends are actually significantly reduced, like about half of that. But yeah, as far as weekdays go, Thursday is actually the most boring day, or the most likely to be boring day, again, since the beginning of 2024. Anyways, have I gotten through everything that I want to say here? Pretty much yes. Just wanted to present those new setups, kind of put it into the overall picture that we've been looking at here. Of course, the 5-day time frame does not close today. It actually closes tomorrow, but for CME, it does close tomorrow. And pivot is 68,000 bucks. Daily time frame still showing stochastic momentum to the upside as long as Bitcoin's above 70,450. Again, on CME, trading about $1,000 above that pivot as of right now. So again, just going sideways here for the next day or two, just closing the week out strong for CME would likely be good enough for me to say, hey, next week, you very likely see this move to the upside, getting into the deeper 70s and probably lower 80s, maybe around end of month. But of course, if Bitcoin starts to break down, there are I would start to exercise concern. Well, obviously below last week's low, but even below the median on the daily here, which is where? Which is currently, let's call it like 69,000 bucks. Below 69,000 bucks. Little bit of problems, little bit of a warning flag there. At that point, kind of have to, personally, I'm going to start to lean towards overall correction again first, back down to like 64,000 bucks. But as of right now, ball's in the Bulaw's court. Let's see what happens in the next 24 hours. We'll come back at this one tomorrow. Actually, tonight, later on, I'll be on Crypto Banter, actually. Looking forward to that one. I'm just going to be speaking with the good old Ran. I've actually met him in person. He's actually a pretty cool guy. I actually do really like him. He's super chill. But I'll be on there later. We'll have a nice announcement for that. I don't want to spoil a surprise as of right now, but that'll be later today. Anyways, with all of that said, I want to wish you the best of best. Take care. Much love. And see you hopefully tomorrow.